Most people are unaware of an interesting parallel between the rapture of the church and the first century Jewish custom of marriage. 2,000 years ago, the Jewish tradition of marriage involved a four-step process. In the first step, known as the betrothal, the groom would leave his father's home and travel to the home of his prospective bride, where he would negotiate a purchase price with the father of the bride. Once the price was agreed upon, the bride was then officially set apart or betrothed for this groom, and they are officially married at this point. The betrothal is not the same as an engagement. An engagement can be broken without going through a divorce, but to break a betrothal, papers of divorce must be served. The father of the bride and the groom would drink a glass of wine to show that the marriage contract was now legal and binding. But here is a big difference from our Western culture of marriage, because the bride and groom would not come together in physical union at this time. The groom at this point would leave his bride and return to his father's home. This begins the second step, the period of separation, which would usually last for around 1 year. During that year, the groom would build a dwelling place for his new bride. The dwelling was usually attached onto his father's home. When the dwelling place was finished, the third step was the return of the groom for his bride, and as he returned, runners would go ahead of him and shout, "Behold, the bridegroom comes." He would usually return around midnight or in the wee hours of the morning. Now the bride knows the approximate season of the groom's return, but she does not know the exact day or hour. When she hears the shouts of the people running ahead of the groom, she is so excited that she does not wait for her groom to arrive all the way to her home. No, she gets up and rushes out to meet him. The groom would then take his bride back to the dwelling place he had prepared for her, which leads us to the fourth step in the wedding, which was the marriage feast. Once at the new dwelling place, a 7-day wedding feast would begin, and it was then the marriage was finally consummated for the first time. Now the parallels between Jesus, the rapture, and the bride of Christ, the church, are obvious. Jesus left his Father's home and came to this earth to purchase for himself a bride, which is the church. The purchase price was his own blood that he shed when he died on the cross for our sin. The church is now called sanctified or set apart, and we drink wine at communion as a symbol to remind us it was the blood of Jesus that paid for our sin. Jesus is now in heaven building a dwelling place for his bride, the church, as he said to his disciples, "In my Father's house are many dwelling places, and I go to prepare a place for you." When Jesus returns for his bride, he will come at an unexpected day and hour. There will be a great shout of the archangel and a trumpet blast. Then the church, the bride of Jesus, will arise in the twinkling of an eye to meet Jesus in the clouds, where he will take us to the dwelling place he has been preparing for us for almost 2,000 years. Sometime after the catching up of the bride of Christ, also known as the Rapture, a marriage feast will take place in heaven, just as was done in the earthly marriage tradition. It is also interesting to note that just as the bride was taken before the 7-day marriage feast, the bride of Christ, the church, will also be taken before the 7-year tribulation period spoken of in the book of Revelation.